Betty Boop was among the more popular characters from the stable of Fleischer Studios, an early cartoon studio whose shorts were distributed by Paramount Pictures. Fleischer Studios were also the first to produce Popeye the Sailor and Superman cartoons, but Betty was one of the first cartoon characters to run into trouble with censors. She was a notably sexualized female character whose animators regularly placed her in risque situations, and her first features were definitely aimed at adults. When the Hays Code went into effect in 1934, severely limiting what could be shown or even implied on screen, Betty instantly transformed into a more innocent, kid-friendly character. But her initial sexualized representation made such an impression that it made her a pop culture icon, which she remains to this day. She began as a caricature of jazz singer Helen Kane, who had a very similar singing style, and was even known as the Boop Boop a Doop Girl in the 1920s while a contract performer for Paramount. Kane's career was in decline by the time Betty Boop features were becoming popular, and she even took Paramount and Fleischer to court over the unauthorized use of her likeness in 1932. However, the judge ruled that neither Kane's appearance nor her singing style were unique enough to warrant a finding of infringement, and the lawsuit was dismissed. In the late 1980s, Disney was on the ropes, with their animation studios under pressure to produce a hit that would rival those of the studio's golden years. They delivered big time, with 1989's The Little Mermaid, a traditionally animated masterpiece that single-handedly revived Disney animation. Its success paved the way for the likes of Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King in the 90s, which helped to build Disney into the entertainment powerhouse it is today. The titular Little Mermaid, Ariel, became an instant icon and one of the most beloved Disney princesses. While it may not be readily apparent due to her flowing red hair and mermaid tail, Ariel's face was based on that of a popular child actress, ALYSSA Milano, who was 16 when the film premiered. While the film was in production, animators used ALYSSA's performance in the early 1980s sitcom Who's the Boss as a model for Ariel's features and expressions. ALYSSA had no idea this was the case until she was asked to host a Making of the Little Mermaid special that appeared on the Disney Channel, which she happily did. The creative minds behind The Little Mermaid also turned to a unique source of inspiration when modeling their villain, the sea witch Ursula. Disney's unsuccessful 70s and 80s features had lacked the expert songwriting of their heyday, so Broadway songwriters Howard Ashman and Alan Menken were brought on board to give the production the scope of a Broadway musical. While Ashman was browsing several early designs of the Ursula character, one immediately jumped out at him, one that resembled his good friend, legendary drag queen Divine. With Ashman's help, the character was revamped to resemble Divine, not only in appearance but in mannerisms as well. Unfortunately, Divine, whose real name was Glenn Milstead, was unaware of the homage and died shortly before the film's release. Many who knew him said that not only would he have loved the character, but that he would have been honored to play the role himself. Disney's renaissance continued with 1992's Aladdin, one of their most successful films to date. In fact, it was the most successful film of any kind that year, earning over $500 million worldwide and winning 2 Academy Awards. It's considered by many to be the best movie to come out of Disney's 1990s revival, if not their best feature of all time. And the late Robin Williams delivered one of the most beloved performances of his entire career, as the genie. When modeling the main character's facial features and movements, animators began with a solid reference, Michael J. Fox, specifically his performance as Marty McFly in Back to the Future. But midway through pre-production, this idea was scrapped in favor of basing Aladdin on a young movie star who was quickly becoming one of the hottest in Hollywood, Tom Cruise. This is especially obvious in Aladdin's winning smile, which almost perfectly matches Tom's toothy grin. This change was made because the first model was thought to be too cutesy, and the filmmakers wanted a more handsome, cocky look that still projected boyish innocence. Cruise fit the bill perfectly. And now that you know this, good luck not seeing it. Arriving just as the superhero movie boom was really coming into full swing, 2004's The Incredibles hit a home run for Pixar. It was a fantastic addition to the Pixar canon, a great superhero film in its own right, and arguably the closest thing to an acceptable Fantastic Four movie we're ever likely to get. The film's character design is typically spot on, and though she appears only briefly, Edna Mode is one of the film's most memorable characters. She's a live-wire fashion designer who used to moonlight as a tailor to the superheroes, and she's called out of retirement to fix Mr. Incredible's suit. But of course, she ends up outfitting the entire family. Her design and characterization were based heavily on Edith Head, a legendary Hollywood costume designer who won an astonishing 8 Oscars for her work. Her career began in the 1920s and lasted all the way until her death in 1981. Many had speculated that Edna was based on Edith, as the resemblance is nothing short of uncanny. But Incredibles director Brad Bird, who also voiced the character of Edna, later confirmed that this was the case. It's safe to say that many of you watching this video have never known a world without The Simpsons. Over an incredible run spanning 4 separate decades, the Simpson family and their supporting characters have become ingrained in American pop culture. And as the creators of South Park can tell you, it's tough to find a comical plot or subject for parody that The Simpsons haven't already done. A mainstay since the show's first season, Milhouse Van Houten has served as Bart's best friend, straight man, and comic foil from the very beginning. The character's first name is actually the middle name of little-loved President Richard Milhouse Nixon, but the entire inspiration for the character came from another beloved sitcom, The Wonder Years, which began airing in 1988, just a year before The Simpsons' debut. That show's main character, Kevin Arnold, had a dorky best friend named Paul Pfeiffer, played by Josh Saviano. The hairstyle, glasses, and general dorky look are all there, and both characters serve the same purpose: to be the loyal best friend, for better or worse. Speaking of South Park, when thinking of the long-running and groundbreaking animated series, one character usually jumps to mind: Eric Cartman. The scheming, profane, and unapologetically bigoted third grader became the show's breakout star beginning with its very first episode. Cartman gets an anal probe, which is the only episode of the series to be animated using actual cardboard cutouts. Trey Parker's voice performance is undoubtedly one of the most unique and hilarious in all of animation. But to make a star of such an unlikable character, Parker and partner Matt Stone went back to the well of classic 70s sitcoms. Specifically, the seminal Norman Lear-produced comedy All in the Family, and its loud and racist patriarch Archie Bunker, played by veteran character actor Carol O'Connor. Archie served as the conservative foil to the show's liberal characters and views, and Parker and Stone envisioned Cartman serving the same purpose. A legendary producer responsible for such shows as The Jeffersons, Sanford and Son, and One Day at a Time, told podcaster Mark Maron in an interview that he couldn't be prouder of anything than he is of Archie Bunker's influence on Cartman. Disney's The Jungle Book is among the greatest classics of their golden age, and was recently remade as the very well-received live-action feature in 2016. In the original film, a quartet of musical vultures are among the friends encountered by Baloo and Mowgli on their adventures. These vultures have very distinct mop-top haircuts and Liverpudlian accents that give them a more than passing resemblance to the Beatles, the biggest band in the world at the time of the film's release in 1967. In fact, the vultures were meant to be voiced by the Beatles themselves, and would have sung a pop tune entitled That's What Friends Are For. Unfortunately, the idea was vetoed by none other than John Lennon, who sarcastically remarked to manager Brian Epstein that they should get Elvis Presley instead. The vultures ended up singing a barbershop number, but kept the hairstyles and accents of their inspiration. They were featured in the 2016 film, and director Jon Favreau attempted to secure the surviving Beatles, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, to provide their voices, but was unable to do so. Favreau expressed sadness that he couldn't finally deliver the Vulture Beatles, but expressed hope for the sequel. In 1919, the New York Journal began running the comic strip Thimble Theater by cartoonist E.C. Cigar. Featuring the characters Castor Oil, Olive Oil, and Ham Gravy, the strip ran for a full 10 years before it found its star, a corncob pipe-munching sailor man named Popeye. The character became an overnight success, and was soon starring in the previously mentioned Fleischer Studios cartoon shorts, on his way to becoming an American icon. For inspiration, Cigar based many of his characters on people from his hometown of Chester, Illinois. Wimpy was partly based on his boss at his first job, and Olive Oil on the owner of the town's general store. But a well-known and colorful resident was definitely 100% of the inspiration for the famous Sailor Man. Frank Rocky Fiegel was a bouncer at a local saloon, who had Popeye's characteristic squint, corncob pipe, and was always looking for a fight. He once came out on top when 5 local boys tried to gang up on him, and when startled awake from napping in his favorite chair was known to jump up flailing his arms, ready to take on all comers in a manner that cartoon fans would find familiar. Fiegel died in 1947 at the age of 79, and his tombstone acknowledges his influence as one of the most beloved cartoon characters of all time. It might seem like the Joker's partner in crime, Harley Quinn, has been a part of Batman lore forever, but she was actually created in the 1990s for Batman the Animated Series. She's one of the only DC Comics characters created for a different medium to be adopted immediately into comic book canon, and she's been a fan favorite ever since, recently making her live-action debut in 2016's Suicide Squad. A Harlequin-themed female foil for the Joker might seem obvious, but Harley's inspiration is as out of left field as they come. Her look and voice are based on actress Arlene Sorkin, and specifically her performance as Calliope Jones on the long-running soap opera Days of Our Lives. In the 1980s, the soap was prone to weird flights of fancy, and a dream sequence in which Sorkin's squeaky voice character appears dressed as a jester stuck in the head of Paul Dini, a writer on such series as Transformers and G.I. Joe, who would go on to write for the Batman animated series. A friend of Sorkin's from college, Dini created Harley based on his memory of this one sequence and offered the role to Sorkin, who couldn't turn it down. She has gone on to voice the character in over a dozen series, video games, and animated movies.